Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show today. I'm really glad you could join us. So today, we've got a really special guest. It's diving into one of the hottest topics, one of the hottest trends that's happening over the last 5 years or so. So we're going to be talking all things crypto. We're going to be talking about blockchain technology. We're going to be talking about a lot of other things that's the forefront of things you should be focusing on, things you should know about, things you should be investing in, things that are going to affect how you do business every day, day to day. So with us today is Dennis Lewis. Now, Dennis is a seasoned digital storyteller and blockchain marketing specialist with a proven track record both in Europe and in the United States. He successfully led to market and exited multiple startup companies and prides himself on his ability to make complex projects very easy to understand and relatable. In a marketing landscape increasingly obsessed with shiny objects and overly complicated sales funnels, Dennis also still believes that the key to any successful marketing campaign are the words on the actual page. So Dennis, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me on. It's a real pleasure.
Well, it's hard to figure out kind of where to start with you because you have so much expertise in so many different areas that we could talk about, including crypto, including blockchain, including marketing in those areas, including digital storytelling, right? I mean, there's 5 different interviews, but I want to really spend some time with you here and talk a little bit more today about crypto, about blockchain. So what are some of the most important things that think that people really should know about crypto that you find that they don't know?
Well, you know, it's one of those topics that isn't easy to get your head around, okay? Because it touches something that's really deep down and fundamental for pretty much everybody, and that's the topic of money. And, you know, we talk about money a lot, we think about money a lot, we fight about money a lot, but we don't usually stop and think about what the hell is money. And cryptocurrency blockchain really requires that you take a step back and make that thought process, because money isn't really what we normally think it is. You know, we've kind of got this idea that money is created by governments, and sometimes it is, but the US dollar isn't, for example. And we kind of think that it has value, has some sort of intrinsic value, and it doesn't. It's just something we believe in, and because we believe in it, it has value. And the whole blockchain technology industry has come about because there are other ways of creating value and creating instruments for storing value that don't depend on governments, they don't depend on banks, they're decentralized. And until you really start thinking about it in a new way, it can kind of be confusing, and everybody sort of just thinks, oh, this is monopoly money. And in a way it is, but in a way monopoly money is just as good as real money as well.
So that being said, you know, money and when it comes to a lot of this, there is some element of government control, right? So why are governments going to allow crypto to even exist? I mean, it seems like they're going to fight to high heaven to try to prevent crypto from ever being commonplace.
Well, it's sort of one of those things that the technology does, it kind of speaks for itself. There's not an easy way for anybody to actually stop it. I mean, I'm all for regulating. I'm all for making this industry a safe place for people to actually harvest the benefits. But, you know, blockchain exists because there's an internet, and the only actual way you could actually stop it from existing would be to turn off the internet. There's really no, that's kind of a part of the equation. Part of I think the other part is that it is a fascinating motor for innovation and for creating new ways for businesses to fundraise, for them to find new efficiencies in the market, to actually solve problems that haven't been solved before. And that's kind of why I wrote the book that we'll kind of hopefully talk a little bit about as well. And I think it's a wave that really solves a need in the market if we do it the right way and we approach it the right way.
So what does your book focus on?
Well, my book really has two purposes. One was a sort of a cry of frustration for the industry, because the industry, for those that are in this industry, know that it went through it's been going through a very raucous time, and there was this humongous skyrocketing of the industry, and then there was an enormous crash, and then there was what we might call the crypto winter of 2018, and now things are kind of coming back, and and part of the reason I wrote the book is that the industry itself needs to focus on the right things. It needs to focus on solving problems, and it's very focused on token prices and speculators, and the value of the market cap of different cryptocurrencies, and that doesn't build a sustainable model for 20 years from now. But the other part of the book is focused on actually how an entrepreneur can leverage this technology to build their business, and to use it to create efficiencies, and to create new ways of reaching the market, and new ways of helping people. And that's what good businesses do. They solve problems.
What are some of those ways? I mean, everybody listening here are entrepreneurs. So what are some of those ways that you see this technology? Are we talking about cryptocurrency, or are you talking about blockchain technology? You know what? Before we dive into that, let's talk about what both of those are. Give everybody an idea of what cryptocurrency really is and what blockchain technology really is.
Okay, that's great. So let's start with the underlying technology, which is blockchain. So a blockchain is basically an accounting system that doesn't require a server, doesn't require it doesn't even require an accountant. So it's decentralized, and it's a way of keeping track. So you can record information on the blockchain, and it's forever preserved. As long as there are computers that are connected, that are mining that blockchain and keeping that blockchain alive, then there's no single point of failure. So it's a very powerful technology for fintech companies, for banks, for eliminating a lot of weak points in our financial system. Basically, if you look back over the last couple hundred years, the financial sector of the economy, all it basically does is keep track. It keeps score in different ways. It creates different ways of keeping score, and it charges money for it. And the financial sector probably consumes 20-25% of the entire world's GDP, and it really doesn't necessarily produce all that much value. In today's world, moving money from one place to another shouldn't be that big a deal. It shouldn't require 20% of the entire GDP to move money or to keep track of somebody's balance. And that's why this technology is so disruptive, because it actually solves that problem at a very fraction of the cost.
Okay, so go ahead.
That's blockchain. And cryptocurrency is a construct. It's something that's built on top of blockchain, which is a financial instrument. It's a money. It's currency. It could be Bitcoin. It could be Ethereum. There's thousands of them. Okay, but it's a way of creating digital money, and then that digital money is, instead of being created by a central bank or by the Federal Reserve, is created by an algorithm on the blockchain. So it's mathematically created. And it's basically has the value that people want to give it. So it could be worthless. There's many, many examples of cryptocurrencies that are totally worthless. And it could be enormously valuable, like Bitcoin, which is the most commonly recognized cryptocurrency, which now I think right now is over $10,000. Today it's $10,300 some odd dollars per Bitcoin, whereas a few years ago it was not worth pennies. And the only difference is because people believe in it, and because we collectively have agreed that it has value, then it does. But that's the truth of any currency. The US dollar is only as valuable as the belief that we have that it has value.
Makes perfect sense. So that being said, back to what I kind of started to ask before, as entrepreneurs, how is both of these kind of technologies going to impact us?
Wow. Okay. So any company that moves information, any company that wants to store information can use the blockchain to do so and eliminate a lot of their infrastructure costs. That's one alternative. Imagine somebody that wants to record the ownership of something. So a memorabilia company, somebody who wants to, you've got a baseball cards, or you've got, signed pictures of, you've got artworks. You could have anything could be registered on the blockchain, and you could keep a lasting record of the ownership of that asset. And that's one way to leverage the blockchain. Another way that's been very prominent and was very prominent in 2017, and it's maybe a little bit less so right now, is the using of cryptocurrencies to finance entrepreneurial projects. In fact, in 2017, cryptocurrency and token sales raised more money than VC capital.
Wow,
worldwide.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. Okay. And it was done by small, scrappy organizations that were able to do it to promote their projects and create and fundraise their projects from people all over the world. And it's a very unique and interesting way to allocate resources to exciting, innovative projects. These were called ICOs, initial coin offerings. They're kind of there's security token offerings. There's a lot of different ways of doing this, but it's basically a crowdsourced fundraising mechanism to promote innovative technologies and projects. And that we're just getting started really with this. It's they're like any new industry. It was kind of a Wild West market. Still is in a certain sense. A lot of the technology is way ahead of the regulations. It's way ahead of the SEC. It's way ahead of a lot of the sort of the how do we make it function in a useful and safe way for investors. So it's true there were a lot of scammers, and there have been a lot of kind of shady projects that raised a lot of money. But that happens in a lot of different ways as well. I mean, that happens on the stock market. That happens in pretty much any financial market. But I think we're now getting to a point where we're seeing really solid projects come out with very serious value propositions that are able to come to market thanks to the ability to raise money this way.
What about, we talked about crypto, and you said there are thousands of different kinds. What are some of the best types of crypto you think to invest in?
The best projects to invest in are the projects you understand. And I don't think that's a crypto piece of wisdom. I think that's just common sense. This is a very speculative sort of, market. So I wouldn't want to give investment advice to anybody, but having said that, get in, get your feet wet, dig in and understand the projects that are raising money. And if you are convinced by the team, and you're convinced by the problem that they're solving, and you're convinced by their ability to formulate a convincing solution, then yeah, jump in and give them maybe a little bit of discretionary income. I wouldn't by any means bet your retirement future on crypto, but there are a lot of really cool opportunities if you're willing to put in the effort to understand and to vet them carefully.
What about ICOs? You talked a little bit about these initial coin offerings. How do they really work? Is the business should they consider this as a way to raise capital? It sounds like if it's outperforming VC money, then maybe they should.
I think that there is a place for it. And yes, I mean, I think it's not for every business. I mean, if you're opening a pizza parlor on the corner, you're probably not going to do an ICO, because it's not going to be, what's the story you're going to tell that's going to make people want to buy your currency, right, or your token. If you're building a tech company, if you're building a company an online company of some sort, then yeah, it could very well be a viable source of fundraising. It's not, I don't want to give people the idea though that you can just go out and build a currency and you're going to raise a bunch of money, because that's there's a lot that goes in. It's a serious project that requires a lot of effort. I've run quite a few ICOs. I've seen a lot of them from the inside. I've seen a lot of projects crash and burn. That's part of the reason I wrote the book, because it's not just a magic wand. It doesn't, it's not just, and there was maybe a few months there where pretty much anybody was launching an ICO and raising a few $1 million at the minimum. I don't think that's the case anymore. You have to be serious. You have to really want to solve a problem. You need to be able to prove that you're not, just out for a quick buck.
How does an ICO work?
So an ICO works by basically creating a cryptocurrency on a blockchain, and there's multiple blockchains out there that you could do that on. The Ethereum blockchain, the Neo blockchain. There's a lot of alternatives there, and you create a cryptocurrency on that blockchain, and then you offer to let people buy it, buy tokens, buy coins, buy amounts of that cryptocurrency. And if you're convincing, then they'll send you money, and you can, if you've given them a reason, then they may fund your project. But coming back to that, it's really the story you tell. It's really the project, the product problem you solve, and it's the roadmap you give them. It's the seriousness of what you bring to the table that will make them, like any project that's looking to raise money. I mean, if somebody sat down with you, Ty, and said, I'm going to build a rocket that's going to go to Mars by winding it up with a crank. Well, you probably wouldn't give them $1 million, right? You'd probably say that doesn't sound like a great idea to me. And that's the same common sense you have to bring to any project. If the idea doesn't convince you, if the people don't convince you, if the structure is in place, the business model, the actual experience to bring something to market, then it's probably not a good idea.
When it comes to cryptocurrency, how secure really is it? Is it safe? I mean, I think this is one of the things, it's new. So a lot of people have these concerns about potential scams there, how safe it is, secure it is to invest, those type of things.
Yeah, it's okay. So a couple of questions there. First of all, is it safe to, could you lose your cryptocurrency? If you buy it, could you lose it? And the answer there is yes. You could lose it because you don't keep track of your passwords or your cryptocurrency keys. If you don't know what you're doing, there isn't a central body that's going to come and save you when you screw up. Okay, I think that's fundamental for people to understand. If you put money in a bank, there's a bank that will come. You can call and say, "Hey, somebody stole the money out of my bank account." Now, you might have to prove that they stole it, but there's a bank there that might actually respond to it. Cryptocurrency doesn't work that way. It's decentralized. So if you own a Bitcoin and you lose it, it's lost. There's nobody there to call. There's not a customer service number to call and say, "Hey, I lost the keys to my Bitcoin." Well, I'm sorry, that's your responsibility. That you have. So it does require some knowledge, and it requires some knowing what you're doing and being, careful and, learning the ropes. So that's a basic sort of user question. And then from a business owner's point of view, an entrepreneur's point of view, if you're going to invest in a project, you need to do your due diligence, and you need to be sure that it's that you're not getting into something that's not gonna fly. And one of the things there is that can happen in any kind of an investment that you make. I mean, that's a decent question. I mean, are you going to buy WeWork stock when it IPOs? I mean, look at Business Insider every day for the last 3 months. They're running articles about, is this a decent IPO? Does it make sense? Is it a tech company? Is it a real estate company? Is it a manufacturing company? What kind of a company is it? Well, if you're going to make that kind of a decision, if you're going to buy on the stock market, well, you need to make that same sort of due diligence before you invest in any kind of a project, be it a cryptocurrency, a blockchain project, or be it, a new stock that's coming out on the market.
Dennis, what do you think that you see people make mistakes that are trying to get in and initially trade in cryptocurrency?
I think that there's a couple of things. There's one is that they kind of jump in and they just get their feet wet in an exchange and they don't really understand what they're doing. Like when I was talking about where do you store your cryptocurrency? How do you keep your keys? How do you keep, those kinds of basic questions that are important that people don't make mistakes about. But from an entrepreneurial point of view, the biggest problems, and I go really deep in this in my book, are business problems. I've seen projects flounder because the founders get mad at each other, and sometimes the worst thing that can happen to a project is it gets too much money, and they don't know what to do with it, or they start fighting over the money, or they don't have the business skills to keep good track of their funds and to keep track of their accounting and to keep track of their developers and their roadmaps, and so it's fundamental business skills that are so important, and this is an industry that is still very techy, and a lot of times it's young guys that are 30-year-olds or 25-year-olds, and they know a lot about blockchain and they know a lot about technology, but they don't know how to build a solid project. And so those are the kinds of things you got to be careful and you have to look out for.
What are some of the tools that people are using that you think are the most effective for trading crypto?
There are a lot of exchanges on the market. So, any of the major exchanges are going to be reasonably good places to buy and sell cryptocurrencies. So, I'm not gonna plug a specific exchange. Some of them are bigger in the US, some are bigger in Europe, some are bigger in Asia. One of the important things is don't store your cryptocurrency that you want to keep for a long time on an exchange. You need to keep that in your own wallet. Otherwise it's really not yours. You're basically depending on that company that runs the exchange to keep track of your assets. So if you're going to buy cryptocurrencies, buy them and then move them to your wallet. Keep good track of your keys. And when you want to sell, move them back to an exchange and sell them, and then withdraw the funds. I wouldn't recommend that people keep a lot of value on the exchanges. There's too many horror stories that happen, even with very serious companies behind them. It's not a simple problem to keep track and keep safe other people's assets. So I think that's a fundamental thing that people need to know.
What about when it comes to blockchain? What's the difference between private blockchain, public blockchain?
So a blockchain is a technology that keeps track of information, and most blockchains are they're open to being mined and maintained by computers all over the world, by pretty much anybody, and anybody can have us run a node and mine and participate in the blockchain. Some organizations prefer to run a blockchain on their own servers and to keep it completely isolated from the public internet. It's another way to use the technology. It's a way to prevent having in your business one server where all your information is, and if it goes down, you're lost. You've hopefully got a backup, right? So I guess that's the idea of a private blockchain. It's still very much in its infancy, though. When we talk about blockchain, most people are thinking of public blockchains.
Makes sense. What about decentralized exchange? That's something I think you mentioned earlier about being decentralized. What is a decentralized exchange?
So the idea of a decentralized exchange is that there's not that it's a broker in the middle between. So let's use an example. I've got some Bitcoin, you've got some dollars. and we agree, and there is, you want to buy Bitcoin and I want to sell. And so normally on an exchange, what happens is you would take your dollars to the exchange, I would take my Bitcoin to the exchange, and the centralized exchange would make the transaction between us, right? They would basically broker the transaction, and you would have on your Bitcoin balance in their exchange the amount that you bought from me, and I would have the US dollars that I received from you. Then I would withdraw my dollars and you could withdraw your Bitcoin. A decentralized exchange does the same thing, but there's not a centralized organization. It would basically keep track of the order book, but the transaction would be directly between us. So you would send me money and I would send you Bitcoin directly. And there wouldn't be an organization in the middle taking care of that transaction. It's just another step in the evolution. I mean, there's some pros and some cons to that. There's difficulties. It's not, there's a question about transaction times and how long it takes for that transaction to be confirmed. And, there's technical questions there about how efficient a decentralized exchanges are. But yeah, there's a few out there that are managing quite a lot of traffic.
What are the benefits of using a decentralized exchange?
Well, the benefits are that your crypto is stored in your wallet. It's never stored in the exchange's wallet. They don't actually own the keys to your crypto. So that's the major benefit there. Difficulties are that, the transaction costs may not be as low, or they may be harder, may take longer to make a transaction. They may not be as fast. There may not be as many users on that decentralized exchange, so the liquidity might be lower. So you may not be able to buy and sell as much as you'd like.
If you're doing, and I know come all over the board here because there's so many different topics that we're talking about, but if you're doing an ICO, you're a storytelling guy, right? You're a marketing guy. So what do you think is some of the most effective ways you've seen to market these kind of ICOs?
So it all comes down to building an enthusiastic community. So it starts with a problem that needs to be solved. That's that's the fundamentals of all marketing. If you're not solving a problem, you're just wasting people's time, right? So you have to start with a really convincing problem that really hurts somebody, and you're solving that pain point. And then you have to attract people that believe in your solution to that problem. And the more enthusiastic and the more convinced they are about the way that you propose to solve that problem, the more likely they are to back you and to want to participate in your project. So that is that's the fundamental underneath of how to market an ICO. You build a community of people that genuinely believe in, got a good thunderstorm going here, that genuinely believe in the solution to a real problem that you're proposing.
So, Dennis, what's the future look like? I mean, what do you think short-term, long-term, when it comes to, for example, blockchain, the other things that have resulted here as a result of blockchain that are built on top of it? What does this do for businesses and life in general in the short term? And then where do you think that this stuff carries us into the future?
So one of the things that I go really deep in the book is a new concept that we launched in the book, which is called a distributed ICO. Because one of the problems that ICOs have had are that they've raised a whole lot of money. There've been projects that have raised $1 billion, and basically on an idea. And suddenly, this group of scrappy programmers finds themselves with $1 billion or $1 million or $10 million or $50 million. It doesn't matter the amount. They find themselves with a whole lot of money, and they've made a whole lot of promises. And now they're sitting in a position where I have to take and deliver on my promises, but they get distracted. Having $50 million in sitting in your wallet is a pretty distracting thing. Okay. And unfortunately, it creates problems inside organizations, and it creates problems about, some people they say, oh, wow, maybe I should just take a year off and go to Tahiti, and that's happened. So a distributed ICO takes the technology of the blockchain and it uses it to create an ICO that happens over time. And it happens in rounds and seasons where projects are getting the money that they need to deliver on their promises as they need it. And as they convince the backers that they're actually delivering on their promises. So it's a way of structuring it over time, which eliminates the attractiveness for scammers, because a scammer wants to get a bunch of money and run for the hills. And it alleviates for the entrepreneur the problem of having to suddenly know what to do with all of this money. Because, you know, most projects don't need $10 million up front. They need $1 million to start, or they need $500,000 to start, and maybe next quarter they need another $500,000, or they need another 250,000. And if the money comes in installments as they deliver, then the credibility of the organization goes up. Because if I say, okay, this quarter, these are my goals, and this is what I'm going to deliver this quarter, and at the end of the quarter, my investors in my tokens are actually participating. They say, does the project deserve to continue? And they vote with their money, and they say, yes, it does, and they get the money for the next quarter. The project does. That is a sensible way to fund new projects and eliminate a lot of the problems we've seen. So I think that's a big part of the future, is using the technology of the blockchain to actually solve this fundraising problem and give the resources to real serious projects that solve real problems.
Dennis, what have I asked that I should? I mean, there's so many things to cover here with ICOs, with blockchain, with crypto. I think we talked about a lot of them, from what they are to how they work to how the future is going to look to how they impact entrepreneurs. What are the questions about these that I haven't asked that you think everybody should know?
I think that for entrepreneurs, for people that are in business, they really should spend a little bit of time of understanding the power of the technology underneath the blockchain, how they could apply it in their businesses, and how they can use the technology of cryptocurrencies to finance their projects and get them out and solve those problems. Because I really believe that the technology is transformative. This has the ability to make things, all sorts of problems, a lot easier to solve. Problems with voting, problems with banking, problems with raising funds for businesses. There are so many real world healthcare problems. There are so many real world applications for using the blockchain and using cryptocurrencies. And right now it's sitting in the hands of a few very techie, nerdy kind of people that are only scratching the surface. And I think now is a beautiful moment for real entrepreneurs to sit down and say, can I use this to make the world a better place? And the answer is yes. But it's not going to be done by whiz kid, Mark Zuckerberg, 20-year-old sitting in a dorm room. No, this is going to be used by serious entrepreneurs solving real problems, using fundamentals that we all know are good practices for building solid businesses.
It's awesome. Where can everybody go to learn more? And especially, where can they go to get your book?
Okay, so the book is called Behold the Cryptopreneurs. It's on Amazon. It's on paper. It's in Kindle version. So Behold the Cryptopreneurs. And anybody who wants to get the first 4 chapters of the book for free can go to cryptopreneurs.club. So that is cryptopreneurs.club. And just sign up there. I'll send them the first 4 chapters for free. Get them get your mouth watering a bit, and then jump over to Amazon, grab the whole book. Reach out to me. I love to talk to people in your audience. So anybody have questions, just let me know. And yeah, I think this is a wonderful opportunity for business people to really see a new way of doing business and building businesses for the future.
Dennis, thanks for coming on today. This is powerful.
Wow, it's been fun. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, as many times as you want, Ty.
So everybody listen, a lot to go through here. And I kind of jump back and forth between crypto, between blockchain, and between ICO, because there's so many things. But first of all, you need to understand how this technology works, because the reality is in the future, you're going to be accepting things like cryptocurrencies as payment for your services. So you need to understand how these things are going to work. You also really need to understand blockchain technology, because a lot of what's going to happen in the future, especially in financial services, is going to have some kind of basis in blockchain technology. It's designed in a way where it fixes a lot of problems that currently exist in the financial markets. And that's going to be a correction that you're going to see, I believe. So you need to know more about it. But ICOs, those are really powerful. A lot of us are really looking for very creative ways to get financing. And what Dennis said here about ICOs now generating more money last year, I think, versus venture capital, that's a big deal. That means these ICOs are pumping more money into businesses than really one of the primary forms of injection of money, which is venture capital. So this makes a big difference when you're going out and trying to think about starting a business or coming in and getting the funding you need to grow the business that you have. So really 3 very powerful topics. But look, we just scratched the surface. So what you really want to do is you want to go grab this book, and then do so. Start with the first 4 chapters for free. So go to cryptopreneurs.club. That's cryptopreneurs.club. I'm going to put that link on the show resources page. All of our podcasts are at creditsuite.com/podcast. You can come, you can look at Dennis Lewis's file, and you'll find this link there as well. Or you could just visit cryptopreneurs.club to be able to grab the first 4 chapters of that book, so you can dive in and learn more about all these things relating to these technologies that you should know about. So make sure you do that right now. Visit cryptopreneurs.club to grab the first 4 chapters of Dennis's book, so you can dive in deeper to ICOs, cryptocurrencies, and blockchain technology. Thanks, everybody. Make sure you have a great day.